this case, the Allied forces. Right? So we tried on this side. We also tried through the Arab Union that would also put pressure on the Allied forces. In the end result was it was such a difficult thing to get, because ultimately what we were after was that the United States and the Brits, they needed to release the coordinates. That was the information that we needed. Where was the artillery used and thrown? Because if you come with the Geiger teller, it's very specific, a very small area where you define where you can find the radioactivity, and then you can test the soil. So that was what we were after, to get those coordinates. And the United States and the Brits, they were not ready to release that data. And why? For political reasons. The United States would not want another media campaign against the war, or against nuclear, the use of nuclear. So ultimately we had to go as high as Kofi Annan to talk to Condoleezza Rice. Very specific targeting. Try to target at that level people. You need to come up with the best information you have, with total Allied forces, if you like, ministries, unions, everybody moving together like this is not possible. Do something about it. In the end, after all that, we did have the meeting between Condoleezza Rice and Kofi Annan, and the coordinates were not released. So in the end, we were not successful after all that work. But what they did do was that in turn it did spark a debate in the US Senate. So there was discussion. So we were able to move on the agenda. In our particular case, we couldn't do the research, but perhaps that's even less important as the fact that that debate is there, and that in the future they will not even use it, perhaps. Who knows? This is just an illustration for you on you can do more. You can do much more on. You can have a small topic, but you can also have a big topic, and it depends on how you would want to use that. But create that web is what I would say. Create that web with partner organizations, and it's just opening up a sea of opportunities and possibilities. And I think a lifetime of very interesting work. Yeah. That's the pincer. How would that apply to you? Does anybody feel like, okay, well, actually, this is an eye-opener for me. In my work, I think I can reach out to at least a few more organizations that can be very, very helpful. Who has that feeling? What I didn't put here yet is media, but of course we made extensive use of media, press releases, and it's important. BBC is very effective. BBC has such an audience. Put one message there. They will not just put your message there. You need to work on it. They will, but once it's there, the world sees it, and you open up to the world. Particularly if an issue is a taboo in a country. If it's very difficult to discuss it. The HIV/AIDS campaign, for example, in a lot of countries it was just ignored. They said, well, we don't have it in our country. It doesn't exist. No, it didn't exist because it wasn't measured. But it was there, right? They weren't able to discuss it. So obviously, the agencies, they saw, okay, well, internationally there's a big movement happening. There's funding for it. There's UN AIDS. Are results the same as outcomes? I don't hear. I see people shaking, but it's not exactly the same. It's in the okay. So you as an NGO, you develop your activities that produce results. They're called outputs. These in turn produce outcomes. that lead to your overall objective. That's logical frameworking. Outputs and activities are in the sphere of, remember the spheres we discussed? Sphere of control. Outcome is in the sphere, and the objectives are in which sphere? Influence. So if you do your action plan, this is the easy part, defining your activities and your outputs. You organize a couple of meetings, and your outputs or workshops, your outputs will be you have organized a number of workshops or a number of gatherings, etc. But if you target, or if you have a direct meeting with the governor, that's an output. You've had your meeting. The outcome that you're targeting is that that person will act in favor of you or changes a decision. But you don't have that under control. He can do whatever he wants. Right? So that's why it's influence. That's why we're calling it outcome challenge. In your action plans, the best thing to do is you can work upwards and you can actually also work downwards. It depends a little bit on how you do your planning. If you start with your overall objective, here it is, we want to have a governmental budget line for the implementation of a youth strategy, your overall objective. What are several outcomes that you would like to achieve in order to get to that budget line? No, yeah. What I'm saying is, when you define your outcomes, this is actually the question that you ask yourself, no? In order to get to the objective of establishing that budget line for the implementation of a youth strategy, who is your political target? Who is going to make these decisions?
Mayor.
So the mayor, perhaps, or the local. Who is adopting this local youth action plan? Parliament? Local parliament. So local parliament is then your political target. So you're actually asking yourself the question, how will they respond to my initiative? We would hope that they adopt it, right? So that's the question that you ask by defining your outcomes. With whom would they be interacting? So local parliament, if they need to decide on this local youth action plan, who are they interacting with? In what kind of network are they involved, these members? And who will influence their decision? Voters. So the parliament members are dependent, basically their constituents are their voters. Right? If their voters say something else, you need to play around with that. If
you must be like on the baseline. I think that there are other stakeholders.
Other stakeholders?
Like
Please.
the mayor.
Yeah. But when you define these outcomes, it's important to understand that you can target them, but they have more people to answer to. And that's where the challenge is. That will help you in determining, okay, how will they respond? Will they decide favorably or will they not? And what would they be doing to contribute maximally, to the maximum, to this vision? So what could they possibly do? Is it just a decision, or is there more they can do as a... so you can get an idea of what your political targets would be doing. When you make your action plan, that's actually what you're doing. You're looking at your objective, you're looking at the different outcomes you would like to achieve, determine who is your political target, and then you make your plan of activities and outputs. You can do that for the short term, the mid-term, and the longer term. Outputs. So basically the logic works both ways, like this and upwards. In order to achieve your objective of having the budget line on youth, you said we want 3 outcomes. Local youth action plan adopted, the budget line at the local level established, and the working group established. And these are outcomes because they require a decision by other parties. Your outputs are then, outputs are the results.
Outputs are equal, yeah.
And outcomes are impact. Maybe that helps. Yeah? Impact you do not have fully under control, but your results you can have under control. So organize meetings, establish a network, things you can do that you have under control. And through these mechanisms you are trying to have an impact so that you can get favorable decisions in this case. Yeah? And then the activities is really okay. Organizing the meetings, writing letters, sending the invitations, it's the real concrete things. This is very detailed in the end. Establishing a network is having, yeah. When you do your planning, so what I just mentioned, you can focus on the short term, the medium term, and the longer term. We've just seen with where is she sitting? You that you had a very short-term plan in your timeline. Remember?
Yeah, yeah. So next week.
It's a 1-week plan.